well? That's pretty good. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so now then, today I was told that the sort of theme of it today is solutions. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about, if you've seen the title that I've given my talk is the 1984-85 miners' strike. Sorry, it needs to be closer to my mouth than that, that's fine. The story they don't want you to know. This is really an excuse for me to talk about two things and then bring them both together at the end. And first of all, to talk about the film that we have just made and which is being shown in cinemas at the moment, which is called Still the Enemy Within. Anybody here seen this film?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Heard of it? That's what we want to know. There are a few more screenings of it for those of you who live in London. There are a few more screenings of it coming up in London in November. There's a website you can go and find out where they're on, and it's currently on tour around the UK. I'm going to Leeds tomorrow night with it, and then York on Sunday, and we're in over 65 cinemas across the country, and so far of the 26 screens we've had, around half of those have been completely sold out. And I think this is a relevant piece of information in terms of the story the film tells, and I think what it tells us about what the opportunities are for organisation and political change now. So that's the first thing that I'm going to talk about. But also, you know, as they said at the beginning, you know, I am a journalist, and actually it's quite instructive that we're standing here, and over there on the far corner is the statue of Lord Derby. Now, I don't suppose anybody who knows who Lord Derby is, do they know? He was the Prime Minister in Britain during the 19th century, and he was for quite a short period of time. And Louis Napoleon, who was the dictator of France, was trying to cozy up to the British government. Well, actually, the British government was trying to cozy up to him. Not the first time in history that we've tried to cozy up to dictators, of course. Not the last either, unfortunately. And the Times newspaper thought this was a very, very bad idea. And the editor of the Times then, a guy called John Thaddeus Delaney, he wrote an editorial in the Times, and because Derby had called him into Downing Street to tell him off and to say, you should not be writing these editorials that are attacking us and they're attacking Louis Napoleon, because we want him as our ally. And Thaddeus Delaney wrote this editorial in the Times, and he said, the job of journalism, this you've got to remember was written in the middle of the 19th century, the job of journalism is not to do as statecraft wishes, but to tell the truth as well as it can establish it and to publish it. And I think that there's a very important lesson still for us, even now in that. That is sort of at the heart, really, of what journalism should be, and certainly at the heart of the journalism that I have done for nearly all of my working life. There's a very, very important role here for journalism in terms of discovering the truth of what is going on and publishing it, because that becomes part of helping to give people the information that they need to create social movements that help build political change. So those are the two things. That's a summary. I'm going to talk first of all a bit about the 1984-85 miners' strike, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the way that we have made the film about it and how it fits into what I think is this very valuable role that journalism can play in helping build social movements. Now, I don't know whether, I would guess that some of you here can't really remember the 1984-85 miners' strike, and I could guess that some of you here probably can remember it and may well have been on demonstrations and marches in support of the miners at the time. Those who remember it will know, and those who don't remember it may have been told this, that the main public narrative, the way the story was told in the press at the time, and the way that it has been told in history books since, is that this was a struggle between Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister, and between Arthur Scargill, the leader of the National Union of Mine Workers. And there were these two very strong political characters, and they were sort of struggling for power. And as Thatcher said, the miners, she described them as the enemy within our society. This was a comparison to the former Argentinian dictator Galtieri, who she said was the enemy without, and the miners, she said, were the enemy within. And the main way the story is told is that Arthur Scargill led the miners very badly because he refused to organise a national ballot for support for the strike. And of course the miners did lose, and they completely lost. Now that is the sort of main narrative that history books tell. Our film tells a very different story than that, because our film tells a story entirely through the voices of the miners on the picket line and their families. And the first thing that's very important about this is that the industrialist strike was not about wages at all. This strike was about people saving their jobs and their communities. It wasn't that people, and this by the way comes across in the film, it wasn't that people say that we have the right to be miners for the rest of their lives. Many of them would prefer to be doing other jobs than being miners. What they said is, we have the right to have our own communities and our communities to stand together. And that what the plans to close down the British pits on a wholesale basis did was they threatened mining communities all over the country. That is what the strike really was about. It was about the importance of saving your communities and in securing, satisfying jobs for your generation, the generation after. The second thing that comes across very, very strongly in the film, and again, a thing that is not really well told, is that the reason why, and this is this whole issue about why there wasn't a national ballot, the reason why there was not a national ballot was because the workers themselves were the ones who said, we are not going to put up with these pits being closed, and we call upon other miners around the country to support us. And the miners around the country responded to this call. This was not a strike, in other words, that was determined by people sitting in head office and telling people what to do. This was something that started with the miners themselves, and the miners got the support and solidarity of other miners. And the third thing that comes across very strongly in the film was the amazing support that trades union members and other activists around the country gave the miners, not just in their own communities, but down here, you know, in London and all of the cities, and in universities. And, you know, those of you who've seen the film Pride, of Hollywood production, about the support that gay and lesbian people gave the miners, that was true. That really did happen. That in that time, although the strike was lost, what people learned was the power of organization and standing together and being part of a community, and the power of social solidarity. That is the reason, I think, why, and that is a thing that the history books do not tell us about the miners' strike. That is the bit that's been cut out. That's the story they don't want us to know. And I think that's one of the things. I urge you to see the film. I obviously urge you to do that. I think that is one of the things that comes out strongly. And I think that is the reason why we are getting full cinemas. I think the people around the country understand that we are at the moment at which we do need to stand together. We need to form social organizations and work with each other, right? And we've had a tremendous response of people of all ages, not just those of us who remember the strike, in response to this strong theme in the film. So that's the first thing. I think that, you know, there is a lesson for us there. We must not forget that. Now, the second thing then is I want to say something, as I said at the beginning, about sort of journalism and particularly about filmmaking. Now, this film, Still the Enemy Within, was not made by British television. You know, it was not made by a big, rich production company on the west coast of America. The money for that film was collected by the filmmakers from trade. This is one of the amazing things about the world in which we live now. Once upon a time, you could never have made a film of this sort for that sort of money. You could never have got a film of this sort into cinemas. You could have never got it reviewed by all the national newspapers as it has been. But now, it is possible to do that. Hello, how do you do?
Just advise you're not allowed to use PA system on the wall.
Oh yes, so they'll be able to hear me better.
I'd just like to say for the record, in earshot of these both sets of authorities, that this rule about amplification is being imposed entirely arbitrarily. There are plenty of occasions where they've allowed amplification in the last few months. This is unfair and arbitrary and political policing, and it will absolutely be part of the case that we bring against the authorities for their disgraceful treatment of our right to protest in the last week.
Toodles!
I will now hand back to Mr. Ahern, who will do his very best to make himself heard despite the unfair restrictions placed upon him.
Yeah.
So that is just carrying on recording, but
Yeah.
it won't be
Right, okay. So I might be able to stop the traffic, but it'll be easier for you to hear me all. So, I don't need a mic. Thank you very much, Max. Right?
Use the mic check!
Yeah.
Say mic check!
No, it'll take far too long to get through it then. Yeah. I mean, I just got, right. So I got sort of. I think I was just about to start really on the story. We're just about to start on the story of how we made the film, right? Because I think there's a very, very important thing to learn from this. That, as I was saying, a few years ago, it would have been impossible to make a film of the sort that we've made for around £100,000. £100,000 sounds, I know, like a lot of money, but for those of you who've seen it, you'll know it is a very professionally made film. It looks as good as any film you see in the in the cinema, and also that is enabling us to distribute the film. Now you can do that now, and we did this largely through the power of crowdfunding. We said to people, not just to a few rich people or to a large studio or to a broadcaster, we said to ordinary people all over the country, if you think it's important that we make this film, then we will make it, and we will make it well, and we will get it out. This lies again. This is a thing that did not apply a few years ago. The opportunity for getting masses of people with small amounts of money to create the power of the crowd, to produce an important piece of journalism so the whole world could know it. We couldn't do that a few years ago. I mean, we can do that now. We're doing this at the moment with about half a dozen other films at Dartmouth Films. We're doing one about exposing the evils of the cotton trade. We're doing one about inequality in society. We did one about the power of the nuclear industry. All of these films are in part funded by crowdfunding, by getting people throughout the country who think this is an important story to tell to give small amounts of money to make it happen. So this is, I think, genuinely, part of the solution for us. My strong belief, as I said at the beginning, is that I think that journalism and I think that documentaries are one of the things that we can use to provide the information and to provide this cohesion to help build social movements. Without, this is the way we can get the story, the narrative of what's going on in our society out to many, many people. We can do that with journalism, and we can do it now ourselves. We do not have to rely on the BBC and on ITV and these elite organisations. There is within our own hands to do this. So that is the second thing I wanted to say, and that's where I think these two things come together in terms of solution. Right? We have power ourselves to do things about it, and we can use this to help build the social organisations and the communities that are seen in that were seen during the 1984-85 miners' strike. We can do that to help make the world a much better place. Thank you.